Good evening, everyone. Welcome you all to the last webinar on CSR series started by Mehta and Mehta. Today we will be speaking on CSR compliances, and the format of today's session would be Dolly, who usually takes the presentation, would be speaking on the compliances part, and rest we will give our panelists to chance to give their practical experiences on the CSR compliances. As per the flyer, Mr. Sunil Kumar was supposed to join, but due to some emergency, he is not able to join today. But we have Subhasree Sarkar as one of the panelists, along with Sharad Bhargava sir. We also have our very own Sudhakar sir leading the session, and Dolly would be presenting. So giving a brief background about Sharad Bhargava sir. Sharad Bhargava is the managing partner of Saathi Development Services. He's a finance professional with over 37 years of experience across not-for-profit and for-profit sectors. He holds a master's degree in financial management and is a qualified company secretary. He has worked with international and national level organizations and with the government. His technical strengths include financial management, new business development, budgeting and budgetary controls, donor coordination, statutory compliance, assurance and audits, and learning and development initiatives in the development sector. Welcome, sir. We also have Ms. Subhasree Sarkar as another panelist. She is a CSR professional with more than 17 years of experience in CSR, having experience on working with corporate, government agencies, UN agencies, and NGOs. Currently, she is heading the Social Responsibility Division of Bisleri International Private Limited. Before this, she was heading the CSR of Everest Industries Limited and Luminous Power Technologies Private Limited. Welcome, Subhasree. We look forward to your contribution today. Further, I just wanted to make one point that we are doing all the compliances and work related to the CSR. However, we are not into CSR funding. So we are getting a lot of inquiries regarding CSR funding. We do only CSR with respect to Companies Act and due diligence and all that. So I request everyone to take a note of it. Further, I would like to hand it over to Dolly to take it forward.
Good evening, everyone.
Only before you go further, let me just reiterate what Ashwini has said. Yeah. That primarily the objective of these the webinar series on corporate social responsibility is to create the awareness. At the same point of time, we have come to the regulatory circles that the regulator is not very happy with the kind of compliances what are happening as far as corporate social responsibility is concerned. And as we all aware of, the participants should know that the section 135 related provisions are applicable to all types of companies, including private limited companies also. So most of the times what happens is the private companies, for whatever the reasons it is, they give scant respect to the compliances. And because of that, what happened is a lot of companies, especially the small companies, are ending up in making unnecessarily inviting the penal provisions, whether it is fine or show cause notices receiving, etc. So we thought that we will create an awareness among the corporates so that this kind of non-compliances will be reduced. That is the objective of conducting these webinars. And at the same point of time, we have also extending the services pertaining to corporate social responsibility, any kind of legal related services. We are, we are in a position to extend that. So that is the objective of this thing, not for fundraising and all. So as Ashwini has mentioned, kindly don't call us for any kind of fundraising related issues. Thank you. Dolly, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So on behalf of Mehta and Mehta, we welcome you all in this webinar. So earlier in this CSR series, we have discussed about the, all the topics pertaining to CSR in much detail. And today we are going to summarize the CSR compliances. So I think it is visible to everyone. So as I mentioned, today we are going to focus on the CSR compliances. Also, we will be looking forward for the CSR in India case studies, and also we'll be discussing today various government portal which is available for the CSR compliances. Moving onwards, let's first understand in very brief about the CSR. what is the CSR and how India in India it became applicable. So first of all, India is the first country to legislate the need to undertake CSR activity mandatorily, report CSR initiatives under the Companies Act 2013. It's a legal responsibility on the corporates to provide to take care of the society economically, environmentally issues, and also to address that issues faced by the nation. CSR in India has evolved through different phases like community engagement, socially responsible production, and socially responsible employee relations. CSR is a long-term and a structured commitment towards the development of a society and its welfare. So these are the basic constituent of the CSR. First is to contribute toward the sustainable economic development, make desirable social changes, also to improve the social environment. As we just discussed in Companies Act 2013, Section 135 for the CSR got introduced along with the company's CSR policy rules 2014, followed by Schedule 7 for the CSR activities. And these are the amendments till now. So since 2013, there was constant amendments in like last 2 years in the CSR from 2018 till 2022. So that's how a CSR in India has become more mandatory on the corporate side as well as NGO side. So let's just talk about Section 135 in very brief. First, the applicability. Every company having net worth of rupees 500 crore or more, or turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, or net worth of rupees 5 crore or more during the immediately preceding financial year shall constitute a corporate social responsibility committee. So basically here the company has to check about that threshold limit for the immediately preceding financial year to understand about the applicability of the CSR. Okay, so now let's talk about the role of the CSR committee. CSR committee has to formulate and recommend the board CSR policy. Also, they have to recommend amount of expenditure the company has to spend on the CSR and also to monitor the CSR policy. Now, let's talk about the composition of the CSR committee. It should be 3 or more directors, out of which at least 1 director shall be an independent director. Also, where the amount spent by the company on CSR does not exceed rupees 50 lakhs, CSR committee need not to be constituted. Then what is a CSR spend? The obligated companies are obligated to spend at least 2% of their average net profit of the immediately preceding 3 financial years on CSR activities, which is given under the Schedule 7. Then there are also compliances for the CSR policy. So the board of every company consider the recommendations of the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee and approve the CSR policy. Also, they have to disclose the content of such that policy in their annual report. And also they have to ensure that the activities included in a policy of the company are undertaken by the company. What is CSR policy? So CSR policy means statement containing guiding principles for selection, implementation, and monitoring of activities. It is a principle for formulation of annual action plan. Then there is one provision for the administrative overheads. So here the board shall ensure that the administrative overheads shall not exceed 5% of the total CSR expenditure of the company for the financial year. Then there is one more provision in the CSR. What if there is a surplus from the CSR? Then the act is saying that any surplus arising out of the CSR activities shall not form part of the business profit of the company. Such surplus to be ploughed back into the same project or shall be transferred to the unspent CSR account. Now, in case of the set off of excess CSR amount, company can set off that excess CSR amount against the requirement to spend up to immediately succeeding 3 financial years, with the condition that the excess amount available for set-off shall not include the surplus arising out of the CSR activities. Also, the board has to pass the resolution for that effect. So now here the question comes up that what after the 3 years? So here the act is mentioning clearly that up to immediately 3 financial years, company has a right to set off that amount. After 3 financial years, it will elapse. So now let's talk about the capital asset. The CSR amount may be spent by a company for creation or acquisition of held by a company established under Section 8 of the Act, or a registered public trust or a registered society having charitable objects and a CSR registration number, which they will get by filing the form CSR 1, or beneficiaries of the said project, self-help groups, collectives, entities, or a public authority. So this is a very important provision for the transfer of unspent CSR amount. So let's first understand about what are the compliances in case of the ongoing project. So within 30 days from the end of financial year, open a special account in the scheduled bank, which will be named as an unspent CSR account, and transfer such amount. And the company is expected to spend that amount in 3 financial years from the date of such transfer. After 3 financial year, if anything still remains, in that account, the companies need to transfer to the fund specified in Schedule 7 within a period of 30 days from the date of such transfer. Sorry, from the date of completion of 3rd financial year. Then now, in case of other than ongoing project, the company has to transfer within 6 months from the end of financial year to a Schedule 7, the funds which is mentioned under the Schedule 7, that is Prime Minister's National Relief Fund, PM Cares Fund, Clean Ganga Fund set up by central government, then Swachh Bharat Kosh set up by central government. So this is a very important provision for the compliances related to unspent amount. Again, if the company is not complying with the Section 135, subsection 5 and 6, so that is about the applicability of CSR, 2% CSR spend, and also to transfer the unspent amount within the timeline, then there is one provision under Section 135, subsection 7, which is talking about monetary penalty for the company and every officer in default for non-compliance with the provisions relating to CSR expenditure and transfer of unspent CSR account or Schedule 7 fund. Here, a company defaulting, which is a defaulting company, is now liable for the lesser of ₹1 crore or twice the amount that should have been transferred to unspent CSR account or Schedule 7 specified fund as applicable. Additionally, a defaulting officer is now liable for lesser of ₹2 lakh or 1/10 of the amount that should have been transferred to the unspent CSR account or the Schedule 7. So as we can see, with the introduction of this penalty provision in the year 2022 amendment, the provision for the penalty has become more stricter, and as defaulting company and defaulting officer, both the person has to pay a very heavy penalties for the non-compliances. Moving onwards, there is a one concept got introduced in the recent years as an implementing agency. So who can be the implementing agency? So first, let's understand that the board shall ensure that the CSR activities are undertaken by the company itself or through a company established under Section 8 of the Act, or a registered public trust or a registered society, which is again exempted under Clause 23C of Section 10, or registered under Section 12A and approved under 8AG of the Income Tax Act, which is established by the company either singly or along with any other company. So here our companies are allowed to, jointly hold the CSR program or project with another company. A company established under Section 8 of the Act or a registered trust or a registered society established by the central government or state government, or any entity established under an act of parliament or a state legislature, or a company established under Section 8 as a registered public trust or a society and having a established track record of at least 3 financial years in undertaking and similar activities. There is a concept as an international organization, which is given under the implementing agency. So company can engage the international organization for designing, monitoring, and evaluation of the CSR project or program as per its CSR policy, as well as for capacity building of their own personnel of CSR. But however, they cannot engage international organization as their implementing agency. Also, a company may collaborate with the other company for undertaking project or programs or the CSR activities in such a manner that the CSR committee of respective companies are in a position to report separately on such project or programs in accordance with the CSR rules. Now, in case a company engages an implementing agency, then audited utilization certificate from the implementing agency can be obtained as a good practice. Sudhakar sir, would you like to say anything over here?
No, as such, as of now, I'm nothing to add. Only thing is that, as you are rightly mentioning, my advice to all the participants who are from the corporates is that please do ensure that whatever the compliances are envisaged under Section 135 and the rules thereof, be very clear about it, because of late the regulators are focusing a lot on the CSR compliances. Please don't take any chances, number one. Number two, even procedural part also, the rules are very crystal clear. There is no ambiguity anywhere. So, please do ensure. And in fact, we have given an extensive coverage in our last 4 webinars, including today's one. And all these webinars, the recordings are available on the YouTube. And as and when you have any kind of an issue, you can always refer back to these recordings, or alternately, you can be in touch with us.
Yes.
That's what I want to say, Dolly.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So
Okay.
let's talk about the impact assessment. So first, let's talk about the applicability of impact assessment. Every company having average CSR obligation of 10 CR or more in the 3 immediately preceding financial years shall undertake impact assessment through an independent agency of their CSR project having an outlays of 1 crore or more, and which have been completed not less than 1 year before undertaking the impact study. So here the company has to look after. There are 2 conditions for the applicability. If they are fulfilling that threshold limits, they are crossing that limits, then the impact assessment is applicable to them. Then also impact assessment report, which should be placed before the board, and it shall be annexed to the annual report of the CSR. Then let's talk about the expenditure. Earlier, when we have spoken about the administrative expenditure, so the administrative expenditure limitations, which is given under the provision, it is different from the impact assessment. I'm clarifying this because as and when we are we are getting this query. So expenditure over here, it means that company undertaking impact assessment may book the expenditure towards the CSR for that financial year, which shall not exceed 2% of the total CSR expenditure for that financial year, or 50 lakh rupees, whichever is higher. Let's talk about now disclosure in the annual report. So under the Act, it is clearly given for the Annexure 1 and Annexure 2, which is applicable to that particular company. They have to follow that format and mention about their CSR spending in the annual report. In case of foreign company, the balance sheet shall contain an annual report on CSR containing particulars specified again in the Annexure 1 or Annexure 2. Then there is a provision for the website disclosure, which talks about that boards of the director of the company shall mandatorily disclose on their website about the composition of the CSR committee, CSR policy. Then there is one provision for the CFO certification. The CFO or the person responsible for the financial management shall certify about the funds so disbursed have been utilized for the purposes approved by the board. Then again, under the CSR provision, there is the forms that company has to file. Form CSR 1, that is for the registration of the entity which is going to act as an implementing agency. So entity who intends to undertake any CSR activity shall register itself with the government, central government, by filing the form CSR 1, which should be again signed and certified, verified digitally by a chartered accountant in practice, or a company secretary, or a cost accountant in practice. When that company is going to file the CSR 1 form, a unique CSR registration number shall be generated by the system automatically. For the form CSR 2, which is actually the report on CSR, it shall be filed separately on or before 31st March 2023. After filing AOC 4 or AOC 4 XBRL or AOC 4 NBFC, whichever is applicable to your company, companies will have to provide the following details in the CSR 2. The details of CSR amount spent in 3 preceding financial years, and details of all ongoing projects, CSR committee, CSR disclosure on their website, that website link, net profit, and other details of the company for the preceding financial years. If any capital asset have been created or acquired through CSR spending. So all this information the company has to provide in the form CSR 2. Let's talk about the penalty provision. So earlier in this presentation, we have seen about the non-compliance of section 135, subsection 5 and 6. But now let's understand about the non-compliance of rest of the subsections. So in case of non-compliance with any other provisions of the section or rules, the provision of section 134, subsection 8, or general penalty under section 450 will be applicable. Further, in case of non-payment of penalty within stipulated period, the provisions of section 454, subsection 8 will be applicable. So under the schedule 7, all are the activities are given as a CSR activities. So first will be healthcare or eliminating poverty, sanitation, clean water, environment protection, protection of flora and fauna, conservation of resources, education or vocational skills or livelihood. If you are spending on benefit for the armed forces or war widows, or if you are spending on technology incubators, rural development, skill development, you are encouraging the sports, you're spending on Prime Minister's Relief Fund or Central Welfare Fund, or for the slum area development, for environment, for sustainability, for gender equality, women empowerment, for reduction of hunger, poverty, or you're also spending on national heritage, art, or culture, it will get considered as your CSR activity. Yeah, so that was it about the section 135 and rules, and also about the schedule 7. Now, our panelist, Ms. Subhasree Sarkar, will narrate about the case studies and the project or programs they are doing at Bisleri.
Hi, good afternoon once again to all. Thank you, Sudhakar sir, Ms. Ashwini and Dolly for inviting me. I would like to share the social responsibility which Bisleri International is currently taking care of. So when we talk about the social responsibility, basically every organization has a policy like Dolly mentioned in her presentation, Schedule 7 that all that rules are mentioned. So SDGs and all these things, every policies, every corporate, they have taken their own policies to build their own CSR arms. For Bisleri, we have basically taken two major thematic areas. One is health and environment. In health, we have ocean therapy, which is a kind of therapy which is basically famous in the Western countries, and it is very expensive also. So, Bisleri is promoting this ocean therapy and creating a pool of doctors who are trained on the therapy. And this therapy is very useful for stress management, tuberculosis, pain management, and others. So we, through our Bisleri Trust, we have this project being implemented. Today, I will talk more about the environmental projects. So in environment, we have taken two major material topics. One is the plastic waste management and the second is water conservation. In plastic waste management, Bisleri has a project called Bottle for Change. Though the name is Bottle for Change, but we talk about all kind of plastic. The basic objective of this project is to educate people and create an awareness among people that plastic is not actually bad, but we need to know how to dispose it properly. Because if we cannot dispose it properly, it goes to the landfill and it creates nuisance. In our day-to-day life, plastic has become so much, it is very difficult for everyone to do away with plastic and find out an alternate solution. Though there are many alternate solutions are coming, but somehow if we see from the beginning of the day, from the toothbrush, from the washroom, we have the bucket, we have pencil box, we have tiffin box, everywhere it is plastic. So this initiative of Bisleri is to create an awareness how plastic can be properly disposed of so that it doesn't go to the landfill and it is sent for the recycle. So this project we will talk about, and the second is the water conservation. In water conservation, we have project named Nai Umid. Through Nai Umid project, we are creating an awareness. First is on awareness generation on water conservation, reuse, reduce of water. And also there are two kind of projects we are doing, one in the urban setup, rainwater harvesting, and in the rural constructions of check dam and the repairing of check dams. Moving to the next slide, Dolly. So when we when we have this projects, how we implement the project is we have our Bisleri Trust, and through Trust we implement our project as well as we have our implementing partner. In some places where we do not have our own bandwidth to implement the project, we partner with various NGOs for implementing the project, and for this we have set a proper due diligence, like when Dolly was presenting that as per the guideline of CSR, there are many due diligence are mentioned for this NGOs also. So we have a set process, and through those process we check their experiences, what is their background, their 3 years of audits and their transactions, and all this. After all these things, we used to share them a scope of work, what we want to do, and then based on the scope of work, the NGO used to submit their proposal. And based on the proposal review, our partners get selected. This Bottle for Change project is basically, it is made on the principles of SDG. We all know Sustainable Development Goals, and this is directly helping the SDG 8, which is the decent work of economic growth, SDG 12 and SDG 13. So while we are talking about can we go to the next slide, Dolly? When we are talking about SDG 8, our project is basically for creating awareness of plastic waste management. So when we go to various housing societies, when we go to the schools and college, we create an awareness among people and ask them to do a source segregation. Source segregation, why we are doing? Because if we see the rag pickers, the kavari wala, those who are working there, they used to pick all these things from the dump yard. So when they used to pick all this thing from the dump yard, it actually loses the value of it. If we segregate in our house properly and then they take it from there and sell it, they get a good price. So this way our project is helping the upliftment of the marginalized sector like rag pickers and kabariwala. Then this project, when we started in 2018, we started first only creating an awareness among people that we need to build an awareness that plastic should be kept separately. It should not be mixed with the solid waste. It should go for the recycling. When we talk about that, then they came us with a issue that majorly the municipalities has two kind of solution. One is the dry waste collection and the second is the wet waste collection. So if they do the segregation and again the solid waste collectors come and they mix this thing together, then there is no value. So to solve this problem, we also have created our own vehicle. We have our bottle for change vehicle. This vehicle is go to all the places, and this plastic, whatever they segregate at the source, has been collected. And this collection process and this awareness, to make it a smooth process, we also have our app for bottle for change. So through this project, we have reached out to almost 6 lakh of citizens. Today with us, there are a lot of education institutes, corporates, and various hotels, big hotels and restaurants chains. They are joining us in this initiative. We have seen the best example when we associated with schools and colleges. We face that this is a very successful model working with schools and colleges, because when we educate our children or educate a student, the student go back to their house. They used to talk about this with their parents. Again, they used to talk about this in their society, and this way we were able to spread awareness to various region. Initially, we started the project in one state only, in Maharashtra, and in few places in Mumbai. And gradually now, with all these initiatives and people's interest to join us, we have expanded this project to other cities as well. To talk about our next project is Nai Umid. Nai Umid is directly helping in the climate change, and we are also protecting the life on earth and life underwater. Through this Nai Umid project, we are creating, we are constructing check dams, but due to some government check dams which are already built, after that you cannot build some new constructions. So we are in process of repairing. In Maharashtra and Gujarat, there are a lot of check dams, lot of places like in Raigar. I recently visited one places, and where we saw that this during the summer it is very dry, and at least one check dam is connected to 50 to 60 bore wells. So when we desilt and when we do a desilting of one check dam, it actually helps to the 50 to 60 more bore well to get recharged. All the 7-8 villages which is connected to the check dam, they all get entire year they used to get water from these places. So thus it has helped us to create a good ecosystem in this community. Moving to the next slide, Dolly. And we have seen like where there is a great impact has been created. We started this project in 2001 when there was no CSR policies also, due to as we are working in various places in Gujarat. So we started some projects in 2001 in Gujarat, and then from then till today we have completed more than 200 check dams repairing. And we have seen the changes in the life of the farmers. Earlier, when they were only creating one crop in a year, now they have multiple crop creation option. Their students, those they, especially what we have seen, that this water, when the fetching water from far, it is a job of the women and the students. So they used to drop out from the school, from their education. So this has also been changed when there is water accessibility in nearby places. Many of time they used to migrate to the cities because they do not have proper financial ability there in the villages. So they used to shift to cities for job. So now when they have opportunities for multiple crop, their migration has been also reduced in those places. We have seen that this multiple crops has given them a lot of earning in their life. So this are the two example of, very briefly, I just thought I'll just share with you the two projects we are currently running in Bisleri.
I have my, after Dolly has shared with you the legal aspects relating to CSR, and I see there are large number of NGOs also on this webinar along with corporates. So I will try to, I have two points to make here. One is in terms of what are the various national government portals that are available for both the corporates as well as for the NGOs that they can refer to when they are working on CSR projects. And second is some practical aspects of the CSR law, which is both a problem for, both a kind of a challenge for the not-for-profit organization as well as for corporates, is something that we will discuss in terms of how these provisions have to be dealt with, so that the interface between both of us, that is the NGOs and corporates, is more smoother. So beginning with the various government portals, I have on this slide mentioned about about 5-6 of them. The first one in terms of the CSR is what is called as the National CSR Portal, and the URL is also mentioned there. Basically, the National CSR Portal is an information repository of all activities and fund that has been spent through CSR in the past several years. So the government, the MCA is the administrator of this particular portal. The data is available only up to financial year 2020-21. What is the data that is available? The data that is available is in terms of the various states where CSR expenditure has happened, what are the themes on which expenditure has happened, what are the companies that have made expenditure in various states on various themes, what is the contribution of PSUs versus non-PSUs, what is the contribution of private versus the listed companies. All that data is available, and you can have dynamic reports and MIS reports also generated company-wise of what each of these companies has done in various states. It's a very, very detailed portal, very, very authentic. Even up to the last block in your district, you can get that information as to who has supported social development projects through the corporates in your particular block. So it is up to the block, it is by theme and the amount of money that has been spent. Now, what it does is it helps also NGOs to understand what is the kind of corporate visibility for that block where they can go to these corporates, and the corporates can also understand what is the kind of allocations that are being made by companies. So for instance, if you see 2020-21, close to about 26,000 crore rupees was spent on CSR. We don't have the exact data for 21-22. So this is one portal where you can get the most detailed information about historical data, basically about the corporate CSR spends, and who was the implementing agency, where was the project implemented, what was the sector for which this project was implemented, and how much money was spent under that particular project. Now, those projects can be directly by the company or through third-party implementing agencies. As we know, when Dolly talked about Rule 4, where she said implementation can be by the corporate and implementation can be by NGOs or trust societies and Section 8 companies which are registered as implementing agencies through the CSR one. The second portal which is a more dynamic and portal, is what was launched last year by the Government of India, again by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, is what is called as the National CSR Exchange. Okay. Now, this National CSR Exchange is something which has information, and there are close to about 5,000 already NGOs that are registered, about 800 odd companies that are registered. And what this exchange tries to do is to make for a meeting place. Can we have an online portal where the donors can meet the implementing partners? That is the kind of matchmaking portal that the government has launched. I want to only mention that, well, there is slow development in terms of projects being asked for by government departments and projects being submitted by implementing agencies. At this stage, if you go there, you can find demand for CSR proposals, that are the request that has come from various organizations for CSR projects, and you can go to them, see them, whether they match your kind of experience and your area of operations. And this can be a very good opportunity for you to then connect with them in terms of submitting a proposal again. So that is the National CSR Exchange that has been launched only last year. So it's very new still, but there is a lot of work that is happening. We know government portals are slightly slow, but definitely I think this particular matchmaking portal, or a portal which allows demand for fund and supply of funds to get matched, will be a very path-breaking kind of a portal where we can access funds, and corporates can provide funds. Both the demand and supplier of funds can meet seamlessly and at the least possible cost. The third portal that I just want to mention about is what is called as the NGO Darpan. The NGO Darpan is essentially again an information repository. So you have close to about 1,75,000, I think 16 lakh 17 lakh NGOs are already listed on the Niti Aayog's NGO Darpan. Now, this information is about NGOs, not about corporates, because the NGO Darpan is information about NGOs. And increasingly, Niti Aayog is insisting that all NGOs should get themselves registered on the on the Niti Aayog, on the NGO portal. Now, what the NGO Darpan allows corporates is to find out about the NGOs working in different states on different themes, and to have information about them. So as you have the corporates information about corporates on the MCA portal, similarly for NGOs at least, and that data is publicly available. So you don't even have to have login credentials for that. You can go and have that public information available for various NGOs. So you have the NGO directory kind of tab and the NGO search kind of tab, and you can then see what is the area in which they operate, what is their registration details, what is the, both in terms of their 12A ATG registration, their FCRA registration, their registration as an entity itself, what are the funding sources, and especially if they are government funded, then they need to be having a unique ID for taking government grants. So that is also something that probably is a lot of information that is available. What are their activities that they have done? There is also a possibility to see if there are any NGOs which have been, kind of blacklisted. So those NGOs with whom probably it is safer not to work, although even those details are available on the NGO Darpan webs portal. I want to also say that the government is increasingly focusing on NGO Darpan as one particular portal where they can kind of more closely monitor and at some point of time even regulate the NGOs. So this is one place of where you probably can look at NGOs. This is essentially for the not-for-profit organizations which are registered. The other place where corporates can also have information in public is on the FCRA online services portal, which is called fcraonline.nic.in. Basically, FCRA stands for Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, and any foreign funding that has to be taken is taken from the from this particular portal. So when during the process of due diligence, if the implementing agency is getting foreign funding, then you can validate that by checking their FCRA registration, the validity of their registration. Are they already registered? Is there any action being taken against them under the FCRA Act? Is something that probably you will be able to see in public on the FCRA online services portal. The other portal is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, of course, the MCA portal, where what we intend to inform you is that if there are Section 8 companies, not-for-profit, who are implementing agencies, a lot of information as corporates you would know will also be available on the MCA portal about such implementing agencies, which can be paid or not paid, whichever way. But that data is definitely going to be available in terms of directors, in terms of their KYCs, in terms of their their reporting requirements under the Companies Act. All that will also be possible to see for not maybe for trusts or societies, but at least for Section 8 not-for-profit organizations. The visibility of information is very, very much more than compared to trusts or societies which are registered as implementing agencies. The fifth portal that I just want to mention is what is called as state CSR portals. Now, what has happened is, just like the national CSR portal, a large number of states have also come up with portals. Which means that whatever CSR activities they are doing, and the CSR portals of the states are both static and dynamic. Static meaning that they give a lot of information, dynamic in the sense that they also enlist implementing agencies as well as corporates, and therefore that matchmaking proposition is possible on the portal. So I'm not saying all of them have come up with CSR portals, state CSR portals, but I can mention about, for instance, Uttar Pradesh, my own state of Rajasthan. Odisha has a very, very good state CSR portal, and organizations both on the not-for-profit as well as corporates who are working in the state of Odisha have a much better visibility of activities and a chance of matchmaking. That is something that I just wanted to mention. So these are some of the government portals from where data can be made available. I want to also hastily add one thing that came later to my mind is what is the most recent development in terms of the social stock exchange. So the social stock exchange now has also provided a platform to the not-for-profit organizations, both not-for-profit as well as for-profit. So they are called social enterprises, and the not-for-profit, both of them called social enterprises. The not-for-profit organizations may not raise monies from the social stock exchange, but they can get themselves registered on the social stock exchange. Now, if you have organizations which are registered on the social stock exchange, even if they do not access fund, at least they would have gone through the process of due diligence of the SSE. And therefore, you will be in a much better position to probably look at them as implementing partners for your CSR projects. So slowly, a large number of not-for-profit organizations would also get registered on the social stock exchange, and the social stock exchange itself will become some kind of an some kind of a validation portal on the basis of which probably you will be in a much better position to talk about or consider organizations for funding. Next slide, Dolly. So these are some of the portals that I have kind of I thought it would be good to share both with the NGOs as well as with the corporates. Now, I was also required to kind of discuss in this webinar what are the practical aspects which we need to consider. So you have as Dolly had mentioned, there's a paradigm shift in terms of CSR, okay, in January 2022, which is just about not very long back. And that paradigm shift has changed our entire orientation on CSR. So, both corporates as well as NGOs are in a way, challenged to adjust to the changed expectations in the law. Now, what are some of the points that I thought we should consider? And those points are some points which have practical implications also. So I thought of, and Sudhakar ji also said that probably I should be referring to the, when we talk of CSR, there is a lot of, the words keep interchangeably being used. When Dolly was talking of Schedule 7, Schedule 7 talks about areas where you can do CSR activity. Now, so you come to what is a CSR activity, and a large number of places where the rules talk about what is an activity, it doesn't define that, but it does say activity. The third place is what is the third point is what is called as a project, and the fourth point is what is called as a program. So the word program is not used anywhere in the law as well as the rules, but the word project has been used specifically when we talk of the word ongoing project. Now, our understanding in terms of social sector projects, okay, and the corporates need to understand this, is that there is a distinction between activity, project, and programs. Activity, so if you were to look at hierarchically, program would be at the top, followed by project, and followed by activity. That would be a much better way of, kind of explaining how it works. A program might contain a large number of projects, and it will be a much long duration, and much, the impact of that particular program will be more widespread in terms of geography, time, and the total number of beneficiaries. So we generally do not talk of programs, because programs is something in social development sector that the government talks about, because, the scale is very, very huge. Now, coming to the word project and activity, which is more, important for us, is the point that I just want to mention. A project is a set of interrelated activities. So I think when we talk about an ongoing project, when we talk about certain activities that will form a part of that project, and therefore the ongoing project is considered to be 1 + 3 years, meaning that there are large number of activities. Now, for example, if we were to talk of a watershed project, okay, that's an environmental environment project, comes under environmental protection and betterment under the Schedule 7. Now, watershed can be a project, and in watershed, you can have several activities, as Subhasree was mentioning. They're looking at dugwell, they're looking at landfills, they're looking at coming up with improving the water table, community promotion of water as a resource. All those activities you might have together, those activities will be watershed, including the construction of various bunds and things like that. That will be a project, and various activities that you will do will be part of the project, but they are all interrelated activities, because they ensure that water is available, and water will then ensure livelihood activities. Now, what is an activity is more specific. So, for instance, standalone projects, as we call them, when we call ongoing projects and standalone projects would be standalone activities in a certain sense. For instance, if we were to say, I will buy a mobile van for somebody as an implementing agency, I want to put out a labor room, those would be a one-time activity. So that probably will explain the distinction between what is an activity and a project. I think we will not talk about the programs, although I just mentioned about it, but the activity and project distinction needs to be understood by both corporates as well as NGOs to be able to then decide what is it. Is it a single standalone activity that you would fund under CSR spend, or is it a clubbed related activities which will then form a project, which may not be a standalone one-year project. It might span over a period of 1 + 3 years. The second thing is what I call as implementing agency. Now, Dolly had mentioned in Rule 4 that implementing agencies could be corporates, either themselves, their own internal department, CSR department, or they can also have implementing agencies which have been kind of promoted by them. They could be Section 8 trust or a society. That is one. Okay, so you actually, or a foundation. So actually the company might form another institution for doing the CSR activities on their behalf. Now, the third category, which is mostly the NGOs that we are talking about, are what are called implementing agencies. Now, they also have the same requirement of, Section 8 trust society. They should be public trust and public society, public at large. They should have a 3-year track record and a CSR1 requirement with a validity, the CSR1 validity being 3 years. Now the question is that when a company looks at CSR spend, what is it that will drive it to implementation versus third-party implementation, direct implementation, either itself or through its own entity versus third-party implementation. Now, the point that is to be considered is, and I want to also share some broad data, every rupee that is spent on CSR, nearly 60 paisa is spent through the direct implementation and only 40 paisa is being spent through implementing agencies. Now, it is a big challenge for the implementing agencies to see that this 40 paisa increases to 60 paisa and 70 paisa, because that's probably your forte, that is your area of strength, which you bring because of your community touch, because you are part of the community, because you are the ones who can ensure sustainability of that activity once the CSR spend is done. No corporate will be able to have sustainability over a long period of time unless they look at, horizons of 20, 30 years, which you are already there, and therefore why create a parallel structure? So now what needs to be then understood is how credible are implementing agencies, how strong institutionally and programmatically they are. So I think there is no clear yes or no answer, but to corporates, the suggestion can be that, well, if in your area of operations you are able to identify credible organizations and do a due diligence and handholding process, I think the organizations which are seeded in the community will do a much better job programmatically. Institutionally, of course, you will also handhold them because they are small, they do not understand laws, and the way laws are changing for the charitable organizations, it's itself an existential risk for these organizations. So I think the corporates also have a responsibility in terms of strengthening institutions of third-party implementing agencies, as in terms of sustainable CSR spending. Okay, that is what I would like to say. Now there are these so the law that Dolly mentioned about has thrown up a lot of challenges in terms of reporting. So again, I want to mention this very clearly here because I see a lot of tension between corporates and the third-party implementing agencies. Why? Because of the reporting requirements. I think the understanding on education on CSR law cannot be restricted only to corporates. It has to be equally known to corporates as well as the NGOs. Only then the expectations would be very clear. They can be clearly stated in the contract, and those timelines can be kind of adhered to. So I want to mention that the reporting requirements is something where, after January 2022, we are finding a lot of tension in terms of timely reporting. I think it will smoothen out as we, as the rules pan out and we give more time for both the corporates as well as NGOs to kind of, get used to and, adjust to that changed scenario, because it's still early days that these have, but there is I see both on the NGO and the corporate side, a lot of reporting pressure. So I think if the expectations were made clear between the two of them, and that were explained and awareness created, education created, that will, continuously ensure that this kind of a tension or struggle would go away. The other point that I want to mention practically is ongoing projects. Now, ongoing projects are projects which are the year in which contracted is year 1, and you can go up to 3 more years. Now, managing ongoing projects is both a challenge for corporates as well as NGOs. For the corporates is a challenge because the timing at when the project has been sanctioned should need to be considered, because you need to give enough time for the NGOs first to, go on ground, set up their systems and kind of, be able to deliver. I think a lot of corporates are now understanding that ongoing projects need to be made ongoing from day 1 of April of that particular year for the NGOs to be able to really implement them as ongoing projects, and for the corporates to be able to spend the money, because the ongoing projects have this string attached in terms of unutilized amount to be taken to the unutilized CSR account, and again then given back to the NGO, because the money that is available with the NGO is not considered as spend as clarified by the MCA. So there is this thing, and I would therefore suggest practically that please have budgets and budget reviews both with corporates, and not on a yearly basis but maybe on a quarterly basis. At least in the quarter 3 of the financial year, you would exactly know how much money to give in quarter 4. Please, can everybody? So in quarter 4, so that there is nothing like an unutilized amount that is left over. So, but it will take again more time in terms of the time span itself. But ongoing projects need to be much better understood both by corporates as well as NGOs, and again the expectations need to be very clearly stated and enforced. The other point that I want to mention about CSR is, and given the fact that CSR is the mainstay for social sector development projects in terms of the future for India, I think most corporates need to consider robust due diligence processes for selection of third-party implementing agencies. I don't think there's an alternative to third-party implementing agencies, as I have been mentioning, because of their great connect with the community, which probably is the cornerstone of social development projects. What we need to understand is to the corporates, what we need to understand is what are the nuances that are there for the charitable organizations. Those nuances need to be understood. These are all charitable institutions. If we set up commercial contracts with them, if we ask them to charge GST, if we deduct TDS, they all get out of the charitable ambit of charitable status under Section 215 of the Income Tax Act, and probably may lose their charitable status of 12AB itself. So I think it's very important. The corporates also need to know what is exactly the checklist for due diligence that needs to be done. How are charitable institutions set up? What are the barriers or their limitations in terms of their their operations, and how they are very different from for-profit organizations. And our mentality or attitude towards for-profit at times, becomes so overpowerful that, we tend not to, consider what the NGOs are themselves saying, even though they might still not be able to say because of the lack of awareness on their part also. But I think a lot of owners
Sharad sir, that I would like to add a few things as far as the implementing agencies are concerned, especially the company secretaries several times ask these questions. And in fact, I have seen some questions in the chat box also regarding this. Number one, whenever the company, instead of taking up directly the CSR activities, they are appointing an implementing agency. By merely appointing an implementing agency, giving them their money, you are not discharging your responsibility, you are not discharging your obligation. Implementing agency is nothing but your extended arm. At the end of the day, CSR responsibility is yours only. You have to comply with the law. Let it be very, very clear about this thing. Because several times the question comes, I have assigned the responsibility of implementation of the CSR to the implementing agency. They have not done the job. I have given the money to them. They have not spent the money. Now they don't have the liquidity. They are not repaying me that money. All these questions are coming up. Please understand very clearly that when you are selecting the implementing agency, as Sharad sir has rightly mentioned, you have to ensure the credibility of the organization, their expertise to discharge your, to take up your CSR activity or your CSR program, whatever the case may be. At the same point of time, as per the rules also, now it is mandatory. It is the responsibility of the CSR committee as well as the board of directors of the company to monitor and to supervise the projects. And the CFO has to also give a certificate about the money spent to the CSR committee and as well as the board is concerned. So please ensure that if you are appointing an implementing agency, why companies, they don't take up the job directly, why they appoint an implementing agency is the company might not be having the expertise to take up that activity on its own. So there are two ways of it. Number one, you have to engage the people who are your employees of the company and you have to establish a separate division. Instead of doing that, you are outsourcing it to somebody else. So that is easier for you. So when you are outsourcing that, suppose if I'm constructing a house and I'm engaging a interior designer or a contractor for that purpose, what I will do is I will closely monitor that particular project and I will disburse the funds depending upon the project progress. The case here also. One more question people always ask is that if any unspent money is there in the ongoing project, who has to deposit the money and in whose name the bank account is to be opened? The bank account is always to be opened in the name of the company only, not in the name of the implementing agency. Legally, implementing agency has nothing to do. Everything is to be done by the company only. As far as the deposit of money is concerned, in that particular bank account, whether the company deposit that money or the implementing agency deposit the money, it is immaterial. At the end of the day, in that particular unspent bank account in the name of the company, the money should be deposited. These are a few issues I thought I will bring it to the notice of the participants. Please go ahead, Sharad, sir.
Thank you, Sudhakar ji. I just want to also supplement this. I fully agree that, company secretaries or sustainability division or staff, even if they, give the CSR projects to implementing agencies, they cannot have a hands-off attitude. They have to still spoil their hands in the field, understand what these organizations are doing, help handhold them, more specifically not for program, at least for the program they can be your they can educate you, but on the institutional side, because the program implementation is only half the job. The second half is basically reporting, their own house being in order, and that is also equally important for purposes for the corporate. So that's the second thing. The third thing is that, as Sudhakar ji was saying, that just giving the money is not going to end. You have your impact assessment to be done. If the impact assessment, and again, there's a window period of 1 year before the impact assessment is done. If the window period of 1 year and the work has not been done up to the mark, then ultimately it's not something going to reflect of the implementing agency. The implementing agency may be debarred from getting that further funds. But how will the CSR division explain to the board of directors and to the CSR committee as to why the impact assessment reports have been so bad? So I think these are the law, and the lawmakers have seen that they are able to have those checks and balances to see that the desired outcomes from CSR spend, and that has been something that Sudhakar ji, you would agree, has been the kind of discussion happening in in government as to how to ensure not only spends but also the quality of spend. Okay. So there are about two more points that I want to make, and probably then people could ask questions. So I am telling you, the onboarding of implementing partners, when you have, I think it's wise to have an onboarding process documented and a checklist or a calendar prepared, so that calendar is both with you as well as with the implementing partners, and that can be tick marked periodically to see whether whatever compliances needed to be done, because you see what happens is that their compliances are all stated in the contract, and neither we nor the NGOs are so meticulous about taking the box. It's only when at the fag end or the 11th hour there's a requirement, suddenly the CFO wants the audited utilization certificate, there's a scramble for the NGO. So if that compliance calendar or that calendar of activities can be pre-decided year on year, that would probably be a good tool for ensuring that both the corporate as well as the implementing partner is on the same page. I have two more points to make. One is, I cannot overemphasize the fact that the interface between corporates and implementing partners, if they are being implemented through implementing partners, has to be of the highest quality and very, very regular, especially after the Jan 2022 changes that have been made. Without this being a very close partnership, I think the job cannot be done. At some point of time, it will actually start cracking. It will not get delivered. So it'll be a question of pointing fingers, which will not actually really help us. And the last point that I want to say is that corporates, when they are doing contracting with third-party implementing agencies, they will have to come out of their mindset of purchase order-based contracting, because these are all in the books of the implementing agencies. These are all grants in a way. And when there are grants, they consider it as for charitable purposes. But if we are to set up as a commercial contract, then all implications of GST, commercial consideration, business, for fee, TDS, GST, all that will come. And that will pose a very major existential risk to these implementing partners, even though they may not understand, because they are seeing the carrot dangling, they might accept it. But remember, 12AB registration of not-for-profit organization is no longer perpetual. It's for a period of 5 years. And all of them will come up for renewal in AY 2026-27, where you might see the same consequences that has happened for not-for-profit as has happened in the FCRA. So I think if we were to also save these foot soldiers, as I call them, for the CSR spend to survive, I think it's also a responsibility on the corporates. I thought some of these practical aspects is what I would want to state, but I'm open for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. That in fact, I have gone through the chat box, and as far as the technical questions are concerned, we have answered all the technical questions. And because Dolly has summarized, and you have very extensively discussed about the implementing agency, and a few questions, technical questions, I have summarized also from my side. So I don't think as far as any technical questions which are unanswered or left with. And once again, I request all the participants that whenever you are facing any kind of compliance issues, you can always refer to the previous 4 webinars, including today's 5th webinar. All the recordings are available on our website. You may please go through that. In every flyer, we do mention about this particular fact. And as far as the other things are concerned, we reiterate that we have not to do anything with the NGOs or their funding and all those things. For that, you have to look for your respective sources only. We are more into the legal than into the fundraising and all other things. I think since there is not any question left with, thanks once again to everyone, and Sharadji as well as Subhasree, thanks very much for sparing your valuable time, and look forward to invite you for more programs in future. So participant, that this is the last webinar in the series of the corporate social responsibility, and very soon we may come with more such programs. Thank you very much once and for all. Thank you. Goodbye to all.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Thank you, Sudhakar.